It was 3 in the morning. A chilling, damp mist clung to the doughy village graveyard where moss-covered tombstones tilted at odd angles, whispering the forgotten names of centuries past. I stood before the grave of Levan Muck, my hands wrapped tight around an old wooden spade. Every breath I took turned into a ghostly white wisp in the icy air. The wind howled through the gnarled cypress trees, a symphony of murmurs that sounded like they were coming from beyond the grave. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying wood, and frost, a combination that sent a shiver straight down my spine. This was the 3rd time I'd been here. You'd think it would get easier, but the fear still had a tight grip on my throat. My hands trembled. My heart was a drum beating against my ribs. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying to force a sense of calm. Grave robing isn't exactly a job for the faint of heart. A distant owl let out a sharp, sudden hoot, shattering the oppressive stillness of the night. My head snapped around, but all I could see was impenetrable darkness, dotted with faint glimmers that looked disturbingly like eyes, tracking my every move. I shook my head, muttering to myself, "It's just the wind, only the wind." I placed the spade on the ground and pressed my foot hard against its edge. The soil gave way with a wet, squelching sound, as if the earth itself was trying to swallow me. Cold sweat dripped down my forehead, stinging my eyes. I pushed on, digging and digging, lost in a grim symphony of rolling stones, the scrape of my spade against the dirt, and the ragged sound of my own breathing. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably closer to an hour, my spade hit something solid. It was a rotted wooden plank, and it released a pungent, moldy stench that filled the air. I grabbed my crowbar and wedged it into a crack. With a sharp crack that split the silence like a breaking bone, the plank gave way. A deep, cold void opened up beneath it, and a strange aroma wafted out. It was incense, but mixed with a sickly sweet smell, the scent of time and decay. I carefully lowered myself down with a rope. My hands brushed against smooth, icy brick walls. The space was so confined I had to hunch over. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, scanning the small chamber. There, in the center, was a wooden coffin. It was darkened with age, but remarkably, it was still intact. Not at all like the decayed coffins I was used to seeing. I approached it cautiously, my hands shaking as I reached out to touch the cold wood. The lid was sealed tight, as if it had been freshly nailed shut. I slipped the edge of my crowbar into a narrow gap and pushed with all my might. The wood groaned and splintered under the pressure. Then, a horrifying sound came from within, like a stifled scream. I froze, my blood running cold. Shining my light inside, I couldn't believe my eyes. This wasn't a skeleton, it was a man, his flesh perfectly preserved, dressed in ancient silk robes. A beautiful jade vase rested on his chest, but it was his face that truly froze the blood in my veins. His eyes were wide open, his jet-black pupils staring directly at me, and his lips were curved into a grotesque, chilling smile. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. I had to get the treasure and leave. My fingers reached for the jade vase end. Then a cold, clammy hand shot out from the coffin and clamped down on my wrist. I screamed, but the sound was choked in my throat. I yanked my arm back with all my strength, but the grip was like iron. My flashlight wavered, flickering wildly. The man in the coffin remained completely still, but his eyes darted around before fixing on me again. That horrifying smile widened, filled with a cruel, merciless glee. "Let go," I rasped, my voice barely a whisper. With one final, desperate tug, I broke free and fell backward. The flashlight rolled away from my grasp and flickered out, plunging me into absolute darkness. But the darkness didn't last. A pale blue light began to emanate from the coffin. In its eerie glow, the man began to rise. Slowly, his joints cracking and popping like they hadn't been used in centuries. He turned his head at an unnatural angle, his gaze burning with pure hatred. I scrambled backward on my hands and knees until my back hit the cold, hard wall. There was no escape. He took a stiff, unnatural step forward. The cloying, sweet smell of incense and decay grew stronger, making my head spin. And then, from the shadows behind him, other figures began to appear. They had pale faces, empty eyes, and were dressed in tattered clothes. They moved silently, surrounding me. They must have been the spirits of those whose eternal rest had been defiled, maybe by other grave robbers. The air grew thick, heavy, suffocating. Levan Muck was right in front of me now. He lowered his face close to mine, and his icy breath brushed against my skin. I squeezed my eyes shut, curling into a ball, just waiting for the end. But he didn't strike. Instead, a cold hand touched my forehead, and a memory that wasn't mine, yet was so vivid flooded my mind. I saw him, on his deathbed, terrified of what was to come, cursing that anyone who dared disturb his sleep would be forced to take his place, trapped in this grave for eternity. I opened my eyes and tried to scream, no, but the sound caught in my throat. The walls of the tomb seemed to shift, closing in on me. Darkness began to devour everything. My body grew heavy, stiff, numb. My breathing became shallow. My vision blurred, and the last thing I saw clearly were the mournful faces of the spirits surrounding me. Their eyes filled not with malice, but with pity. Then, something more. Someone started dragging me. A sudden, violent shove sent me crashing against something hard. The coffin lid slammed shut with a deafening boom. A final thump echoed through the darkness, extinguishing the last sliver of light. I lay there in absolute blackness, my body completely immobile, but my mind was wide awake, screaming. I could hear footsteps above, the methodical, relentless scrape of shovels against dirt, like the drumbeat of death, sealing me in. But the terror wasn't over. I could feel an ancient power here, a force that punishes greed. This wasn't a warning anymore. Any intruder would face eternal vengeance. I understood my fate. My soul would replace his, bound to guard this grave forever. Whispers filled the air, dry laughter echoing all around me, mingling with that sickly sweet scent of incense and rot. This wasn't a dream or a nightmare. This was my new reality. Outside, I knew the dawn was breaking. Roosters were crowing. A new day was beginning. But for me, inside this coffin, there was only infinite night and endless waiting. A whisper brushed right against my ear, a voice as cold as the grave itself. Welcome to eternity. I finally understood. I will remain here forever, until another greedy fool, another grave robber, dares to disturb the dead, and the spade they carry in their hands. Will it unearth treasure, or will it dig up their own inescapable fate? Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more tailies from the crypt. Stay safe out there.